So imagine reading this massive 100-chapter ancient war epic, right?
Yeah.
And one of the most feared, absolute top-tier generals in the entire thing almost never throws a single punch.
Right. He doesn't have a highlight reel.
Exactly. He doesn't have this massive kill count. In fact, he barely even steps onto the battlefield. Yet every single soldier, every middle manager and enemy commander in this universe is just absolutely terrified of him.
Yeah, it's a very specific, almost suffocating kind of gravity.
Yeah.
You know? It's not the loud, aggressive frontline enforcer kicking down the door and screaming orders.
Right.
It's the entity sitting quietly, miles away from the front lines, who simply dictates reality just by, well, existing.
And that image, that unspoken, terrifying gravity is the core mission of today's deep dive. We're unpacking a massive stack of notes, translations, and, analysis centered on the classic Chinese mythological epic, Investiture of the Gods.
Also known as Feng Shenyanyi.
Right, Feng Shenyanyi. But for you listening, we aren't trying to summarize a sprawling, chaotic war today. We're zooming in on one incredibly fascinating character from this epic named Dao Xing Tian Zun.
Because Dao Xing is basically the absolute embodiment of that silent, untouchable boss.
He really is. Okay, let's unpack this. Because here is the central paradox we're going to solve for you today. How does a character with almost zero on-page battle scenes get universally classified by everyone in this lore as a top-tier powerhouse?
Yeah, it's a really good question.
Right. And for you, this deep dive isn't just about ancient Chinese mythology. It's really a masterclass in understanding how real power operates behind the scenes. It's a shortcut to understanding hierarchy, strategy, and institutional deterrence in literally any complex system you interact with.
Totally. Whether that's a corporate office, global politics, or just your own industry.
Because looking through these notes, you simply cannot judge Dao Xing Tian Zun by a traditional win-loss record.
No, definitely not. If you approach this sprawling fantasy universe looking for a standard scoreboard, tallying up how many duels he won or how many mythological beasts he slayed, you will severely underestimate him.
So it's not about his stats.
Exactly. To understand his power, you have to completely shift your perspective from stats to status. We really have to look at the underlying architecture of this world, specifically what the notes call the T-tier system.
Right, looking at the stack of notes here, there's a rigidly defined hierarchy to this universe. I'm seeing these entities at the very top, the absolute apex labeled as T0. They're called the Saints. So is Dao Xing one of these saints?
Not quite, but his connection to them is pretty much everything. The T0 saints figures like Yuanqi Tianzun, Tongqian Zhaozu, and Taishan Laozhen, they aren't just powerful fighters.
Right.
They're cosmic, universe-altering entities. They basically wrote the source code of reality. They're the absolute ceiling of existence in this mythology.
Okay, so they're gods among gods.
That's the best way to think of them, yeah. Now, immediately below those saints, you have the T1 layer.
Okay.
This is the core combat layer, the highest echelon of active, deployable power. And in the faction we're focusing on today, the Chan sect, this elite group is known as the 12 Golden Immortals.
And this is exactly where Dao Xing Tian Zun sits, right?
Exactly. He is a Golden Immortal.
And just to round out the picture for you listening, the notes show a massive drop-off after that. Down at T3, you have the frontline fighters.
Yeah, the T3s.
These are the famous, incredibly popular characters who do almost all the actual bleeding and dying in the story. Warriors like Yang Jian and Neza.
Right. They're out there in the mud every single day.
Exactly. So Dao Xing is T1, sitting comfortably way above the guys actually fighting the war.
What's fascinating here is how the mechanics of this universe dictate power. In Feng Shenyanyi, power comes through something called cultivation.
Which is like a spiritual leveling up.
Yeah, essentially. It's a spiritual and martial process where a person absorbs cosmic energy to literally bend the laws of physics. And Dao Xing's pure pedigree guarantees him a massive, almost insurmountable starting advantage in this process.
Right.
He isn't just some talented guy who worked his way up. He is a direct, hand-picked disciple of a T0 saint, Yuanqi Tianzun.
So he basically learned the source code of reality directly from the cosmic programmer.
That is a brilliant way to put it, honestly. Being the core disciple of a saint means you are handed the absolute highest tier of cultivation resources available.
So you aren't just taught how to swing a sword.
Exactly. You're taught the fundamental laws of gravity, space, and elements. It sets a baseline for his power so incredibly high that he doesn't need to prove himself in petty day-to-day skirmishes.
Okay, so wait. I hear what you're saying about pedigree and getting the best resources.
Yeah.
But if he is a T1 Golden Immortal and he just sits up on a mountain while the T3 frontline workers like Neza are doing all the actual heavy
I
lifting...
know where you're going with this.
Right. Isn't that just unearned nepotism? It sounds exactly like a corporate vice president who got the corner office entirely because his dad is the CEO.
Right, right.
Like the VP plays golf all day while the interns are pulling all-nighters to keep the company from going under. How do we know Dao Xing isn't just an empty suit riding his master's coattails?
I mean, it looks exactly like that on paper. But in this universe, pedigree isn't just a fancy title on a business card. It is literal physical power.
Oh, interesting.
The cosmic energy he possesses is real. We know Dao Xing Tian Zun is not an empty suit because of the benchmarking principle. We measure his strength not by the low-level grunts he beats up, but by the catastrophic threats it takes to actually challenge him and his peers.
Right, so we measure him by his enemy.
Exactly.
Looking at the lore, the overarching conflict of this epic is between two massive factions. Dao Xing's faction, the Chan sect, and their rivals, the Ji sect.
And understanding the difference between those two sects is really crucial here. The Chan sect is highly elitist. They only take a few carefully chosen disciples, like the 12 Golden Immortals.
Okay.
The rival Ji sect is completely different. Their philosophy is inclusive. They will teach cultivation to anyone and anything, humans, animals, spirits, whatever.
We just have way more people.
Because of this, the Ji sect has overwhelming numbers and some incredibly bizarre, terrifyingly strong combatants.
Yeah, the notes highlight the Ji sect's T2 top generals as the direct counter to Dao Xing and his peers. We're talking about entities like Zhou Gongming and the Sang Sao sisters.
Yes.
Specifically, a fearsome cultivator named Yang Xiao. Are these generals really that much of a threat?
Oh, they are absolute nightmares on the battlefield. These G-Sec bosses are so overwhelmingly powerful that they don't even bother fighting one-on-one.
Really?
Yeah, they are famous for deploying devastating apocalyptic magical traps called arrays. And the most notorious of these is the 9 turns Yellow River Array.
The 9 turns Yellow River Array. I mean, even the name sounds like a place you do not want to be.
Yeah.
The notes describe it as a sort of spatial labyrinth.
Yeah, it's essentially a magical meat grinder for immortals. It's this pocket dimension filled with blinding yellow sand and a mystical, dark wind.
Okay.
But this wind doesn't just cut your skin. If it touches a cultivator, it literally blows away their immortality.
Wait, what?
Yeah. It strips away thousands of years of spiritual leveling up in a matter of seconds, turning gods back into frail mortals.
Wow. So it just completely deletes your hard drive.
It deletes your entire existence.
Yeah.
When the G-Sect deploys that array, the 12 Golden Immortals cannot just send one hero in to duel the creator. Standard combat does not apply to a spatial anomaly that erases immortality.
That makes sense.
So the Golden Immortals have to enter the array as a highly coordinated team to even survive the atmospheric pressure of the trap, let alone break it. And Dao Xing Tian Zun is part of that team.
Okay, I see.
He has the raw cosmic power and the deep understanding of universal laws required to participate in elite, magical siege warfare against the enemy's most dangerous assets.
But hold on a second. If Dao Xing has to team up with 11 other Golden Immortals just to survive this wind, doesn't that make him look a bit weak? Like, individually, he isn't strong enough to handle it.
I mean, you have to look at the scale of the threat. Surviving an environment designed to instantly erase gods is not a sign of weakness.
Actually, yeah, reading through this, it feels a lot like a SWAT team.
Oh, how so?
Think about it. Just because a SWAT team goes in together as a highly coordinated unit to take down a massive, heavily armed cartel boss inside a fortified compound,
Right.
that doesn't mean the individual police officers are weak. It means the target is so dangerous that standard patrol tactics are useless. It means those officers are the absolute highest tier of specialized tactical units.
That's a great point.
Right. If you are on that SWAT team breaking down that reinforced door, you are elite. You don't send traffic cops to a siege. So Dao Xing is on the cosmic SWAT team.
That analogy holds up perfectly when you apply it to the magic of this world. You don't get invited to break the 9 turns Yellow River Array unless you possess the specific frequency of cosmic energy required to not instantly evaporate. His mere presence in those cataclysmic moments proves his capability.
Okay, so if Dao Xing Tian Zun is this highly trained elite operator capable of dismantling reality-bending traps,
Yeah.
that brings us back to the daily grind of the war.
Yeah.
If he's that good, why isn't he out there taking down the regular enemy commanders day to day? Why just sit on the mountain?
Because a Golden Immortal's day-to-day job is not to fight. Their primary function in the Chan sect is to cultivate proxies.
Proxies, meaning he actively trains other people to go into the mud and do the fighting for him.
Exactly. Dao Xing Tian Zun is, first and foremost, a master. His role is to forge disciples who will act as his hands in the mortal realm. And his most notable student is a warrior named Wei Hu.
And Wei Hu is one of those T3 frontline fighters we talked about earlier. The guy is actually bleeding for the cause.
He is, and Wei Hu is fascinating because his combat style is so aggressively blunt. He doesn't sit back and cast intricate spells.
Right.
He is a fierce, frontal assault warrior who wades directly into the thick of the enemy ranks. He wields a devastating magical artifact known as the demon-subduing pestle.
Oh, the notes mention this weapon.
Yeah.
It's essentially a piece of mystical wood, right? But it completely defies physics.
Oh, totally.
It's as light as a feather to Wei Hu, but when he strikes an enemy, it hits with the weight of a literal mountain. It just crushes whatever is in front of it.
It is all kinetic energy and brute force. And this contrast between the serene master on the mountain and the bloody sledgehammer-wielding disciple on the battlefield reveals an absolute unbreakable law within the universe of Feng Shen Yanyi.
Which is?
In this system of cultivation, a master's power is always structurally greater than their disciple.
Because you can't teach what you don't know.
Exactly, but it goes deeper than just knowledge. To safely pass down the cosmic energy required to wield something like the demon-subduing pestle, the master's own internal reservoir of power must vastly exceed the disciple's.
Okay, that makes sense.
Therefore, if we see Wei Hu tearing through enemy lines with terrifying, mountain-crushing efficiency, we are forced to acknowledge that Dao Xing Tian Zun's own combat ceiling is astronomically higher.
Wow.
We see this broader structural pattern across the entire Chan sect. You have the master Yuding Zenrin deploying the great warrior Yang Jin. You have Tai Zenrin deploying the fiery Nezha. The masters sit back, the disciples strike.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I'm thinking about how this translates to the real world. Think about boxing.
Okay.
If you turn on the TV and you see a heavyweight fighter absolutely demolishing opponents in the ring, using a massive, brutal, overwhelming style, exactly like Wei Hu with his magic pestle, you instantly know something about the quiet, gray-haired old guy standing in the corner holding the towel. You know the coach who taught him everything he knows is an absolute monster.
Right, yeah.
The coach doesn't need to step into the ring and throw a punch for you to respect his power. The coach's power is literally manifested in the violence of his student.
Wei Hu is the living manifestation of Dao Xing Tian Zun's martial prowess. Dao Xing doesn't need to swing the demon-subduing pestle because he forged the weapon itself, and he forged the man who swings it. The disciple's glory serves as the master's resume.
Okay, having proxies explains how Dao Xing manages to avoid fighting in the trenches. He has Wei Hu to handle the daily violence. But digging into the deeper lore in these notes, it seems like there is a structural, almost cosmic reason as to why he sits out.
Yeah.
It's not just a preference for delegation. He is fundamentally forced to sit out by the laws of the universe.
This is where the architecture of the Feng Shen universe gets truly complex. There are hidden rules governing this war, and the most important is the unwritten law of dimensional strikes.
Dimensional strikes. That sounds like a sci-fi concept dropped into a mythological fantasy epic. How does that work here?
It refers to a massive, unbalanced application of force. There's a strictly enforced cosmic order that dictates high-tier fighters cannot arbitrarily unleash their power to crush low-tier fighters.
Okay.
If a T1 Golden Immortal like Dao Xing Tian Zun simply walked onto the main battlefield against regular T3 mortals, he wouldn't just win a sword fight. The sheer density of his cosmic energy would act like a localized gravity bomb.
Oh, wow.
He would instantly wipe out thousands of mid to low tier disciples in a single sweeping motion. It wouldn't be a battle, it would be a sudden mass extinction event.
Right, it's like bringing a tactical nuke to a fistfight. But from a strategic standpoint, if your side is fighting a war, wouldn't you want to end it in one afternoon? Why is a dimensional strike forbidden?
Because ending the war efficiently would ruin the fundamental purpose of the conflict. This war is not about conquering territory or acquiring gold. It's about fulfilling a destiny quota.
Let's break that down, because the notes talk about the heavens being empty.
Right. The overarching plot is that the celestial bureaucracy, the heavens need staff. They need middle management to keep the universe running.
Naturally.
And to get those staff members, they created the Investiture of the Gods roster, the Feng Shen Bang. It's literally a scroll of names. The only way to get on that list and become a god is to die in this specific war.
So the war is basically a lethal cosmic job fair.
Pretty much. It's a mechanism to resolve karmic debt, known as tribulations. The universe requires a specific amount of struggle and a specific number of fallen warriors who have properly worked through their karmic trials on the battlefield.
So if it ends too fast.
Exactly. If Dao Xing Tian Zun ends the war in an hour by vaporizing the entire enemy army, those karmic trials aren't resolved naturally. The destiny is aborted.
And I'm guessing that's bad.
Very bad. The universe's scales remain unbalanced, which brings disastrous consequences. He is quite literally too strong to be allowed to participate in the normal flow of the war.
That is wild. His immense power is actually a liability to the cosmic order. And the notes also point out a purely narrative reason for this, stepping outside the lore for a second.
Yes, from a literary standpoint, the author relies on narrative armor. If you are writing a 100-chapter epic, you need the main protagonist, Zhang Zia, to lead a difficult campaign.
You need the tension.
Right, you need the readers to feel suspense when T3 combatants like Yang Jian and Wei Hu face danger. If you have an invincible T1 master hovering over every skirmish, ready to instantly delete the enemy, all dramatic tension evaporates. The heroes need room to struggle.
So what does this all mean? When you really look at the mechanics, the karmic debt, the arrays, the proxies, it sounds incredibly frustrating for Dao Xing.
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine spending centuries cultivating this unimaginable reality-bending power. You ascend to the rank of Golden Immortal. You understand the source code of the universe, but you are bound by endless cosmic red tape.
Yeah, quite the paradox.
You've got the destiny quota dictating who is allowed to die. You've got literary plot devices keeping you off the stage, meaning you can never actually cut loose and flex your muscles. It is exactly like having nuclear weapons.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is the exact definition of institutional deterrence.
A nation builds nuclear weapons specifically so they never have to launch them. The entire value of the weapon is the psychological threat it projects.
Right.
If you actually press the button and fire the nuke, you failed because you trigger mutually assured destruction. In this mythological universe, Dao Xing Tian Zun is a walking, breathing nuclear warhead. The strongest move he can possibly make is not making a move at all.
His role is not tactical, it's purely strategic. He acts as a sect-protecting presence. By existing as a known catastrophic threat, he prevents the G-sect's top tier from intervening. It's a mirroring effect. Because Dao Xing and the Golden Immortals hold back, the rival T-Lula leader, Tongqing Jiaozu, also holds back. It creates a Mexican standoff at the cosmic level, which allows the T3 soldiers to fight the actual war on the ground without reality tearing itself apart.
The pawns are out there clashing on the board every single day, bleeding in the mud, making all the noise. Meanwhile, the leaders are just quietly shaping the boundaries of the universe in total silence.
And that is the ultimate takeaway for you listening today. True, ultimate power does not need to be loud. It doesn't need a highlight reel.
Not at all.
When you navigate your own life, your workplace, or the hierarchy of your industry, don't just instinctively fear the loudest person in the room. The person sending aggressive, panicky emails at 2 a.m. or shouting down ideas in the boardroom, they are usually a T3 frontline fighter. They're in the mud, reacting to the war.
The real power is usually the person who isn't saying much of anything.
Look for the Golden Immortals in your organization. Look for the people who are quietly setting the rules of engagement, the ones deploying the talent, the ones whose mere presence dictates how everyone else behaves. The absence of action is not an absence of power. That silent gravity is where real structural control lies.
It completely changes how you view a corporate standoff, a political negotiation, or even just a tense meeting. It's the SWAT team dynamic, the boxing coach, the nuclear deterrent. It is all the same silent gravity. But as we wrap up this deep dive into the Fengshen universe, I want to leave you with one final brand new angle to chew on that builds on these rules of deterrence.
This raises an important question about the aftermath, doesn't it?
Exactly. Think about this. We spent all this time exploring how Dao Xing Tian Zun is constrained by these massive cosmic rules, the no-dimensional strikes policy, the karmic debt, just so the universe can slowly fulfill its destiny. He has to sit on his hands on a mountain so the war can happen. But what happens to these silent powerhouses after the war is finally over?
Right, when the Fengshen Mang list is completely full and the heavens have their staff.
Right. When the tribulations are met, the job fair is over, and cosmic peace is declared. Once deterrence is no longer needed, does supreme power just become total irrelevance? If your entire identity, your only real job, is to be a weapon so destructive that you are literally too strong to fight, what is your purpose when there's no longer a war to not fight in? Does the human nuclear warhead just rust in the silo? Think about that the next time you see a powerful leader sitting comfortably at the top, radiating that quiet intimidation. Without the threat of war, who are they really? Something to mull over. Until next time.